Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to learn about Android Enterprise related specific to profile configurations. As you can see here, you have different configurations that can be configured very similar to what we have done so far with Windows as well as Mac and iOS devices. To begin with that, to configure these settings, go to Microsoft Intune and click on Device Configuration and go to Profiles and create a new profile, give a proper name, a meaningful name. In this case, I'm just giving as Android Enterprise, and choose a platform as Android Enterprise. Now, in the profile types, you have multiple configurations, but they are mostly categorized as device owner only or work profile only. Let's select device restrictions so that we're gonna select the device restrictions. These are the restrictions which are very similar to the iOS, but there would be definitely a few of the changes. But let's jump into each and every setting so that we know what kind of settings we want to restrict. To begin with, we can once we selected here device restrictions, it's gonna show you the settings, and inside settings the category of these settings are close to general. In the general settings, you can configure here like screen capture or camera, such things can be configured here. So let's have a look on it. To begin with, if you want to block or to prevent access to the camera on the device, you can configure as block. Default permissions policy. This default permissions policy defines the default permissions when it is requesting to run some kind of permissions during the runtime. So for example, you can have your prompt or auto grant or TNA. This is more critical. If you automatically grant, the permissions are automatically granted, and that would lead to the other applications automatically gains that permission. So you should be very careful when you're trying to choose this. It should be always prompt would be a recommended setting. Coming back to the date and time changes, this date and time changes, if you block it, the users are prevented from manually setting the date and time configuration. And coming back to the volume change, this volume change, if you start configuring as a block, it's going to be prevent users from changing the device value. And similarly, the factory reset, if you want to block this specific setting, they are not going to be configured, they're not going to be able to reset the device to the factory options. And coming to the safe boot, you want to prevent the users from rebooting the device into safe mode, can be blocked when you configure this specific setting. And the status bar, if you choose as a block for the status bar, it's going to be prevent access to the status bar, including the notifications as well as the quick settings. Coming back to the roaming data and services, if you start choosing the block, for example, if I choose as here as a block, it's going to be prevent the data roaming over the cellular network. That way I'm going to save my network cost, or maybe the data cost. If you start working on Wi-Fi settings changes policy, what happens is it's going to be if you choose as a block, it's going to be prevent users from changing Wi-Fi settings that were actually created by some other policy from your Wi-Fi profile. So that way users can't choose any kind of Wi-Fi settings. And similarly, Wi-Fi access point configuration, if you choose as a block, it's going to be prevent users from creating or changing any kind of Wi-Fi configuration. When configure Bluetooth configuration to block, it's going to be prevent users from configuring Bluetooth on the devices. Similarly, if you choose threatening the access to hotspots, by configuring threatening and access to the hotspots is gonna prevent the threatening and access to the portable hotspots when you block the configuration. And USB storage, when you configure this USB storage to allow, it's going to be allow the USB storage on the device. If you block the USB files transfer, it's going to be block it's going to prevent this transferring the files over the USB. And similarly, USB file transfer as well as the external media, which is going to be blocked by your USB configurations as well as any other external devices. If you connect, that's going to block it. And similarly, you also have a configuration here for the beam data using NFC. When you block to configure, then what happens is it's going to prevent users using the near field communication technology to beam data from any of the apps. Similarly, you also have another configuration which is debugging features. Debugging features will let users to use the debugging features on the device. If you want to block, you can block that configuration, or you can allow. And microphone adjustment can be blocked if you are want to prevent users from unmuting the microphone and adjusting the microphone volume. And factory reset protection emails. When you configure here, what happens is when you choose here as the Google account email addresses, enter the email address of the device administrator that can unlock the device after it's wiped up. Be sure to separate the email addresses with a semicolon, as for example, admin at mail.com or admin at or admin2 dot some other email.com. If the email isn't entered, anyone can unlock the device after it's restored to the factory settings. These emails are only apply when a non-user factory reset is run, such as the factory reset using the recovery menu. When you enable network escape hash, it's allow the users to run on a network escape hash feature. So what happens is if a network connection isn't made while it is booting the device, then it will escape hash, ask to temporarily connect to a different network altogether, and then once the policy is actually applied to this specific device, then it's going to be forget completely the temporary connected network, and it's going to be connected to the actual network. That's what exactly this feature. And if you ask me how or when it's going to be connect this specific device to the network is, if there isn't any suitable network in the last policy, or the device boots into a app lock task mode, or the user is unable to reach the device settings. The next configuration would be the system update. Inside this, you have the 4 different options to be available. Choose one of the option. For example, I can choose as the default device. What happens is the device uses the default settings, and if I choose the automatic option, it's going to be automatically updates or installed without user interaction. And by setting this policy, immediately install any of the pending updates are available for that specific Android device. And if I configure as a postpone, and this is going to be updates or postponed for almost 30 days, or end of the 30th day, it's going to be automatically prompt for the user to install the update. And it's possible for the device manufacturers or carriers to prevent some kind of exemption. They can get the exemption so that the important security updates are being postponed, so that the an exempted update shows a system notification to the user saying that, hey, you are pending for the installing some kind of update. And the other one would be the maintenance window. If I click here, I would be getting here as a maintenance window. Since if I choose as the maintenance window, what happens is automatically the updates would happen during the daily maintenance window that you can configure in the Intune. And installation, it's going to try for the 30 days. Post to that, if it is failed for any of the reason, for example, there's no free space, or maybe battery levels are low, after 30 days it's going to ask for the Android users as a prompt that, hey, you have to install the specific update which is pending. Such configurations can be done, and these are the maintenance windows. You can set it start time and the end time. You can configure here from maybe 12 a.m. to maybe you can configure as a 12 p.m. or something like that. Maybe it would be a good configuration, like you can configure as a 3 a.m. between 12 a.m. to 3:30 a.m. between in the overnight. It's going to be configured as a it's going to be configured as the maintenance window for that specific settings. And let's take the notification window, which is going to be notification window. When you actually disable this, all the notifications, including the toasts and incoming calls, outgoing calls, like system alerts or system errors, that all are shown on the device, going to be disabled. Okay, and if you skip the first use hints, if you take this specific settings, it's going to be, for example, if I configure as enable, what happens is it's going to hide or skip suggestions from the apps to step through tutorials and read any kind of introduction or introductory hints when the app starts. All that kind of first use things would be automatically skipped when you actually set to enable. And if you configure is not configured, it's going to be default with the operating system. So the behavior would be, suggest definitely this applications, and that's how the configurations of the general settings. Let's go back to the system security. This system security focuses on apps, basically whatever the apps which are coming from the Google Play, which must have to be come as a protected, so that it can scan those apps before actually you install. So what happens is, if I configure as a required, which is default configuration, in fact this enables the Google Play protect to scan the app before and after the install, so that there is no uh, kind of malware or maybe a Trojan which was not to install on your device. So it's gonna detect a kind of threats basically, and if any kind of threats, it's gonna want the user to remove that specific app from the device. That's the system security setting. Let's go back to the dedicated devices. So this dedicated devices use the settings, especially for the configuring the kiosk style experience on the dedicated device. So you can configure the devices to run on any of the one app or just one application, so that when you log in into the kiosk disk, it's going to be a single app, and that just runs for you as a kiosk, just for the display purpose kind of thing here. So if you choose as a single app, it's going to be just a single app, and you need to select that specific app from your publisher. For example, you wanna publish maybe some screen like home screen, so that is going to be assigned for that specific user. When you apply all together this policy, you configure and you apply to that specific AD groups, then that specific app will only load it for on your device. And coming back to the multiple apps, you can select multiple apps here. It's going to be multiple apps, like I can add here multiple by if I click here add, then it's gonna add me or list me all the applications that are already published from the apps configuration, and that I can choose here, so that the for example, if I choose the two applications, these two applications will be listed here, and it's gonna also give me the few of the other settings for the kiosk experience, like virtual home button will be available if you choose this configuration as enable. And you want to leave the kiosk mode, you can ask you to configure so that it's going to leave the kiosk configuration. And if you want to enter the pin, you can to leave that kiosk mode, you can enter the specific pin so that it's going to leave that kiosk mode. And if you set the custom URL background, that specific URL gonna URL enable that PNG or whatever the background is gonna display for you. And Wi-Fi configurations you can enable, and also Bluetooth configuration. These are the configurations during the kiosk experience for the end users you can offer for them. And let's cancel the settings and go back to the device passwords. During the device passwords, it's going to be whether you want to disable the lock screen. Such kind of configurations can be done. When you choose, actually it's going to prevent users from using key guard locks screen feature. And if you not configured, it's going to be it's giving you an option for device lock screen features, like when a key guard is enabled on the device, choose which features to be disabled. For example, you can choose here a secure camera, or maybe a camera feature is disabled on that specific device if you choose that, and any features that not checked is going to be enabled on that specific device. So that's kind of configuration can be done. For example, if I choose this, it's going to disable. And similarly, required password type. Password type is nothing but the passwords required for the devices with the default kind of configuration, like numerical only or alphanumerical, or maybe a combination of that along with the symbols, or there's no restrictions. All that kind of complexity passwords can be set for those devices. So normally if I choose here alphanumeric with the symbols is the best practice, and then you can tell this password must be at least the minimum length of 8 characters if you want, and number of characters required at least 4, and the number of lower would be at least 2, and uppercase should be at least 2, and you can also configure here the number of non-letter characters can be at least whatever the number you want to give, and the numerical characters and the symbols at least, so that the password would be appear in that way, so that the complexity would apply for your device specific passwords. And the number of days until the password expiry is very similar configuration. In fact, all these are almost the similar configuration what we have done for other devices so far on iOS or Mac or Windows specific devices. Similar settings I'm going to apply here also. Specific to the password expiry is nothing but the password which was set with the minimum length of 8 characters, going to be expired after 30 days. If we give here value as a 30 days, so that users are going to be changed every 30 days a new password. And the number of passwords required before users can reuse a password is nothing but it's gonna remember that, hey, password history. For example, on the first day, if I use a complexity password type 1 and I can't use that type 1 password again until if I give it here as the 5, that means 5 times it can't use. So the 6th time the first password can be used, so I can go back to the previous history of that password, so that it's going to be more secure, or you can reuse those repeated passwords again and again. And for the number of sign-in failures before wiping device, for example, if the device was compromised and it got somebody that a device was handled misusing. So if a person is entering the wrong password again and again, you can give it here as a count, like 8 times. If he entered a wrong password, it's going to wipe up, and that information will be shown on the screen too. And I'm just clicking on OK. I'm going to configure for the power settings, and if you can look at the power settings, time to lock screen, which is nothing but if the idle time of the device is not in use state for the 5 minutes, it's gonna lock, and screen while device is plugged. This specific setting is nothing but you need to choose whether AC or USB or wireless is your source of your power. So if that source of the power is connected, it's not gonna lock the screen. That kind of configuration you can configure. So this is going to be a wireless power, and this is for USB, or this is going to be AC. And let's come back to other settings like user and accounts. In the user and account section, if you want to allow new users to be added to the device, you can set it to not configure. If you block it, the users are not going to be added to that specific device. And user removal also, you can block it so that you can't remove the users from the device, whoever the end user. And account changes, if this is going to prevent for the users not to modify any account relevant settings. And let's go back to other settings which are application specific. So here we have the allow installation from unknown source, which is almost fully unsecured way of installing the applications not from the Play Store, right? We never know that a specific unknown application might contain some kind of Trojan or some kind of background application which is sending all the information, secured information like bank account details or maybe company data to unknown person altogether, or to a hacker. So we wanted to block such kind of issues not to happen on our environment. So what configuration we will do is, as an Intune administrator, you will be allow installation from unknown source are blocked, so that it's not gonna configure. And similarly, allow access to all apps in the Play Store. If you want to block it, you can block, and you can allow or you can configure these specific settings. Also, app auto updates, you want to configure automatically the updates or the Wi-Fi only, or because if you choose only Wi-Fi, you're gonna save the cellular data. So that would be the best configuration what we can configure here. Just to have one more word here, allow installation from unknown source means if you choose as a not configure, it means it's going to block, okay, and it's going to prevent users from turning on from unknown source. And similar configuration here, allow access to all apps the Google Play Store, means it's going to force the users to only access the applications that are marked as available from the Google Play Store, or the application that we push from Intune. That concludes this application section. Now let's jump into connectivity, which is nothing but your VPN related. When configure always on would refers to automatically it will be connected and stayed as connected until the device is logged, or maybe a VPN maybe for the Wi-Fi connection gets terminated or network changes, or maybe the device is restarted, post to that it automatically connects to the VPN. And you also have configuration to choose the VPN client configuration here. So you have here almost the 4 different connections built in, like Cisco AnyConnect client or Fi Access or Palo Alto or Pulse Secure. And if you want to configure your custom settings, you can also configure here with the package ID. The package ID is nothing but you have to get the package ID directly from the Google Play Store. For example, let me show you that how to get that information. Let me open here the Play Store. Play. Once I open here, I will search for some kind of VPN example. In this case, VPN client. Let's take one of the example here, maybe Turbo VPN, which is free, and you wanted to configure that specific VPN client. What you will be doing is you will just open that URL and copy this URL from the ID equivalent, whatever it is showing. Like in this case, free.vpn.unblock.proxy turbo VPN, which is going to be your package ID. That's it. All you have to do is you have to enter this URL, this package ID information. That way, it's going to be a custom package, and it will search within the Android Enterprise store, and then it's going to install that specific app. That's how it's going to work. And coming back to the lockdown mode, lockdown mode is if you enable this, it's going to force all the network traffic to use VPN tunnel only. That means it's not going to bypass the traffic from your Wi-Fi connection altogether. So you have whatever the transactions are happening, or whatever the communication is happening, it will be established, or it will be go from that VPN server's traffic, including your internet connection. Connection speed also, or the internet connectivity, or whatever you serve, the websites also will be going over the VPN traffic. And you can click on OK. That would automatically install that specific application for us in case if we configure that specific setting. That concludes almost the restricted device restrictions, and I can apply a correct meaningful name. For example, here I can give as this is specific to restrictions, and this is, if you know here, device owner only. And now I'm gonna configure here the description also. I'll simply create this policy, and that's 35 settings has been configured. And if I want to assign, I can assign for the required users. In my case, I wanted to assign this especially for all users, so that this is going to be assigned for all EMS enabled users. So I'm just using that group and selecting that and save. So this is going to be apply that specific setting. That concludes the specific topic. And now let's jump into another topic in the next lecture. Thank you for watching this.